actually might feel like you are still a child trapped in an adult body, because emotionally you have no idea still how to react to certain things. Some things seem like they're bigger than you and you don't know how to react, so your emotional reaction to situations just feels overwhelming and just too big. Maybe you have a deep fear of rejection or abandonment. You don't trust that people will stay around, that they will stick around, that they will love you and accept you for who you are. So immediately you would push them away just to protect yourself. As an adult, you might actually have difficulties expressing your needs, naming your needs, naming what you want, naming what would you like, sharing your opinions. Because if that wasn't safe in your adulthood, or if it was not important, then of course you wouldn't know how to express your needs, at the same time trusting that this is okay, this is safe, that you can do it. Another behavior of inner child would be that you're shutting down. Emotionally, you're withdrawing from relationships. You might people please all the time. Another aspect of it, on the other hand, you actually might be over-functioning and striving for perfectionism, even though deep down you know it's just an illusion. So it's like your logical mind and your emotional mind, they don't really connect. It's like you know one thing, but emotionally you have the urge to do other things, even though you feel like you can't just move and pass them through because there's a deep fear. So all those unmet needs in your childhood, they create a pattern. And if we would really look at your inner child, what those patterns say through your inner child language, it would sound like, please see me. Please don't hurt me. Please don't shame me. Please love me. Those fears, those needs, they create a pattern in your life. This internal voice, those internal unmet needs, they create a pattern in your adulthood that you live by every single day. Those unmet needs, they create a temple. If you are in a situation that you're somehow unsure, you might be triggered by what it does, your emotional self, your inner child is searching for the similar experience and looking at the outcome. Oh, this is how this ends. So I can't trust that this is going to work out because I have no evidence that this is going to work out. So I better not trust it. I better not go into this relationship, or I better withdraw myself as a form of protection. So it's better that I withdraw so it will not allow me to get hurt. Or if I pull out first, it means you won't be able to hurt me. So all of those patterns is really just to protect the inner child. The inner child, if it's not connected with the adult self, when you're not conscious, when you're not aware of your emotions, what it does, the inner child really rules your world, really rules how you see yourself, how you see other people and the world around you. So you might feel like you're an adult who takes control, but in reality, if you're not really are aware of the inner child's unmet needs, it's going to run the show. It's going to run your life without you realizing it. So you have to kind of wake up. You have to pay attention, and you have to be honest with yourself. What kind of needs were not met? What kind of needs you still longing for? Because if it's love, if it's being visible, if it's being acceptable, if it's just feeling safe and not being judged, not constantly being afraid of being criticized, you got to give that to yourself before your inner child is going to start trusting the world outside you. So it's like your relationship with yourself will rule what kind of relationship you will have with yourself, with your inner child, with your past, but also with the future self, with other people. Having said that, now, I don't want you to think that you have to heal yourself first for you to have healthy relationships. That's not actually true. The truth is, we heal through relationships. We heal through other people. Because your brain has no evidence that it's going to work out. So the only way you're going to convince yourself is when you connect with other people, despite of the fear, and through them, with them, you're going to heal. You're going to break the old patterns and create new ones. Why is that? Because we getting traumatized with other people or by other people. So to heal that, to overcome that belief that people are not safe, you actually got to heal through people and with people. No one ever got fully healed or changed themselves without being in connection with some other people, without being or without having some kind of relationship with other people. We need people to heal. Also, healing inner child doesn't mean going back and dwelling on the past. It only means that you have to recognize your unmet needs from then and now trying to meet them from the present moment. You have to learn to respond with awareness, with kindness, with more understanding, without constantly criticizing yourself and judging yourself. So within yourself, you're learning to set boundaries, you're learning to create a safe space in your mind that you're not going to constantly criticize yourself. And that is difficult because as our needs were not met, what we did, part of the adaptation mechanism, was that we have internalized our parents' voices. So the inner critic, it really is your parental voice that doesn't really belong to you, but it's something that you have learned and you never question it. You have accepted it, and now as a result, it became yours. So what are the 5 emotional wounds that we experience them in our childhood? So the first one is betrayal. Betrayal happens when trust was broken or when love and safety was not consistent. So as a result, we might have difficulty trusting others, constantly expecting disappointment, controlling or hyper-independent behavior, testing people in relationships. It's like almost we expect them to disappoint us. We expect them to let us down. So we will test them. So we could say, oh, sure, I knew that was going to happen. I knew I was right. It also prevents you from being too attached with someone else. Second wound is humiliation. And humiliation happens when you were constantly ashamed, laughed at, or made feel very small. And as a result, you might feel constant shame, fear of being too exposed or judged. You try to be perfect. So perfectionism is your thing, it's a form of protection. And you might feel very sensitive to criticism. A lot of fear. Lots of judgment. Often shame followed by guilt that you want too much, your fault, you blaming yourself. Wound number 3 is injustice. Injustice happens when rules were too strict, where rules were inconsistent, or they felt unfair. So as a result, you have strong sensitivity to unfairness, even though you yourself might actually often be unfair to other people without realizing that. You might feel angry, and that anger often is bigger than the situation. So you feel like you might overreact. You might actually engage in rigid thinking, black and white thinking, all or nothing kind of thing. And you might feel moral over responsibility. So you feel like over responsibility for other people, and you don't really easily accept other people's mistakes. You will be very demanding, and you will be actually yourself very strict person. And often you might actually suppress resentment towards people who will make mistakes. The fourth wound is rejection. This happens when your emotional needs, identity, or expression was not accepted. And as a result, in your adulthood, you might constantly feel like you want to or you have the need to people please. You might be afraid of not being liked or accepted. You have tendencies to over-adapting in relationships. So you will really say yes to everything and very little no. So struggling with setting boundaries as well. And you also might feel anxiety in social gatherings, in social situations, or you might feel anxiety in intimate situations. And last wound, abandonment wound. And this is where emotional or physical presence wasn't consistent or was actually missing. So as a result, in your adulthood, you might have huge fear of being left alone. You might actually find yourself being very needy, or on the other hand, you might actually emotionally withdraw yourself from other people. You might have difficulty being alone, and another trait would be intense attachment in relationship. So all of those wounds create some kind of inner child beliefs. And those beliefs sounds like people will leave me, I'm not safe, I must earn love, I cannot trust connection. As you can see, those beliefs are very isolating, fear-based, and they lacking sense of safety. And there's very little room for my needs. There's very little needs for I need something. I need something from you. As a result, with those wounds, we would suppress our emotions, because if there is no room for our needs, of course, there is no room for our emotions, because there was no one who would digest our emotions or would accept our emotions. So what we have done, we have learned to suppress them, because who needs emotions when we constantly trying to fight and to survive and make other people happy rather than ourselves? So if you would look at anger, if you didn't feel angry, or if anger was something that wasn't really allowed, or parents were too angry, so there was no room you could be angry. So as a result, anger now is replaced with guilt or silence. If you would look at sadness, if mom was sad, if dad was too sad, there was no room for you to add to that sadness, so you had to suppress the sadness so you wouldn't make your parents worse. Sadness was then replaced with numbness or detachment. If you would look at fear, maybe you couldn't show fear. And as a result, you replaced fear with control or overthinking. If you could not show at any point your neediness, that you have some kind of needs, you have replaced that with self-sufficiency or massive independence. You didn't allow yourself to rely on anyone, because it was better to believe you don't need anyone than show some kind of neediness, because the disappointment of them disappointing you was too much. Joy and excitement